What does the Race and Equality Center do?
Well, for a correction, it's the USC Race and Equity Center. It's not the Equality Center. The USC,
okay, I'll read what I have here.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I understand sometimes production's missteps, but the USC Race and Equity Center serves as a nexus of practice, policy, and research dedicated to eradicating the social ill of racism.
And how do you do that?
We do that through a number of different means. Part of that involves assessment and evaluation. So we are currently under the process of constructing the National Assessment of Collegiate Campus Climates, and what that is intended to do is to help colleges and universities make sense of the racial climate within which students are expected to live, work, and learn. And so that not only enables us to understand what their experiences are, but the way that racism as a structural and systemic form of power influences those experiences. So that's one aspect of it. Another piece of that is providing professional education and executive training for senior leaders in higher education who are looking to improve that climate to ensure that students have equal and equitable outcomes for their learning experiences in college.
That's amazing. You said a whole truckload of words.
I did.
That had no meaning. I have with me, there's a lot of talk today about white supremacy, racism, all kind of isms. I have with me Charles H.F. Davis. He is an assistant professor at USC and chief strategy officer at USC Race and Equality Center. And so I wanted to talk to Charles. He's here in the studio about masculinity, feminism, homophobia, and white supremacy. Thank you for coming in, man.
Thanks for having me, Jesse. I appreciate it.
And the beauty about it that you're black and you made it on time.
I did.
Most blacks are late.
Well, not all of us. But,
Yeah.
you know, it's a cultural thing. Sometimes we just got to make people wait.
Isn't that amazing? It's just, but I'm glad you made it. You know, on your website, you have the hashtags. Hashtag Black Lives Matter, Free Palestine, Free the People, and No DAPL.
I do.
And why don't you have hashtag Free the Jews?
Well, I mean, I guess we could talk about that in a particular context, and I think we have to think about what Jews we're talking about. I've chosen to take those particular political stances based on the historical record, based on the social and political context that we find ourselves in today. And those are the things that I've just chosen to take up. I think there are other folks who have taken up that particular cause. And just to be clear, I'm very much opposed to anti-Semitism in any particular form or fashion, but I wouldn't want to conflate any of the things that you just mentioned to suggest otherwise.
Do you think that the Jews need to be freed from the attack of the Muslim world? From Palestine, the radical Islamic terrorism, do they need freedom from those folks?
Well, I would reject the premise of the question. I think the historical record is very, very clear about the particular state of Israel and the genocide of the Palestinian people. And so when we're thinking about that in its proper context, when we think about the billions of dollars of aid that the United States government has provided to the state of Israel to continue the genocide of the Palestinian people, then I think we have to have an appropriate analysis of power. And to also be clear, all Jews do not live in Israel. All Jews are not necessarily from Israel as well. And the nation state of Israel, in fact, was Palestine up until various versions of settler colonialism took over that state and killed those people.
So is that a no? You don't believe that the Jews or Israel need to be free from the attack of the Muslims in Palestine and surrounding countries?
I think any of the violence that is happening in that particular region is a result of the violence that was incurred upon those particular people. I would reject the notion of radical Islamic terrorism. I don't think that that's a real thing. That's not to say that individual Muslims have not engaged in terrorism, but individual Christians have also engaged in that form of terrorism. Again, the historical record is clear.
So I'll take that as being a no. You don't believe that Muslims need to, Jews need to be free from radical Islamic terrorism. The attack in New York 2 days ago, was that an example of radical Islamic terrorism?
I think that's what the right-wing media would like to frame it as. But when we're talking about this idea of terrorism, and that's reduced only to people of color and bodies of color, but we're not calling what happened in Las Vegas, where over 500 people were injured and dozens were killed, the same thing. Then we need to talk about the way that the language itself is racist, right? And I think that there's a double standard of how we think about terroristic violence in this country. We don't think about settler colonialism and people coming over to this country and the genocide of indigenous and native people as terrorism, right? So we mischaracterize what we consider terrorism based on the racial politics of this nation.
So are you saying, no, Jesse, that wasn't radical Islamic terrorism in New York the other day, even though the guy was shouting Allahu Akbar and he wanted to fly an ISIS
there's
flag?
nothing inherently.
He even want one in his hospital room right now?
There's
Are
nothing.
you saying that wasn't...
What I'm saying to you, Jesse.
Let me just finish with the question. Are you saying that wasn't radical Islamic terrorism?
I'm saying radical Islamic terrorism as a terminology is a falsehood.
How is that?
Because it's constructed, right? And so we're
By
deciding by the liberal media.
No, these people are actually doing this. They're saying this.
No. What I'm saying is
they're Muslims.
we're right, but Christians are also enacting terrorism.
We're not talking about Christians. Christians
but we are
not doing it.
But we are. If we're going to talk about
Christians
religion.
are not. We're
Jesse,
not talking about religion.
Jesse, we are talking about religion. Islam
this
is a
attack
religion.
by Muslims.
No, that is an individual Muslim who is not representative of all Muslims. Just like Christian, an individual Christian, right? The person that killed all of those people in Las Vegas is no more indicative of all white men who have engaged in terrorism since the beginning of time. So we need to have an honest conversation about that.
Well, Islam is not a religion, just FYI. And
Well, you're not going to tell me FYI that it's not a religion. It's
not.
There are billions of people who are following that religion just like they are following other religions. So we're not up here to have a debate about whether you consider it a religion because you're not the arbiter of people's spiritual practice, Jesse.
I want to go back. So you're saying, no, Jesse, that wasn't radical Islamic terrorism?
No, I'm saying we can call it an act of terrorism, but to call it radical Islamic terrorism is a mischaracterization because we're not being honest about terrorism that happens in this country every day.
So would you call it friendly Islamic terrorism instead of radical?
No, I would say that it could be a terrorist act carried out by an individual Muslim who might align themselves with a particular radical faction, but that is not indicative of all Muslims in this country. Islam means peace. Allahu Akbar means God is great.
You've been listening to George Bush, right? Islam means peace.
No,
But
I've been studying.
I'm
a professor. I'm educated in this. I've spent a decade understanding this. So it's not just a matter of listening to someone else and making their opinions my opinions, having my own formulations from studying it deeply.
And I'm not saying, and I don't think anyone is saying that all Muslims are like this, but you got to admit.
Well, when you say Muslims, you are referring to all.
It's the people who are part of the Muslim movement that are cutting off heads of human beings, that are killing women and children, that if you're a homosexual, they'll throw you from a building. It's the Muslims who are doing this, right?
No, again, you're making a generalization.
People who are of that Muslim movement are doing this, right?
First off, Islam is a faith. Muslims are people who follow Islam.
Right, Islamic faith that are doing this. You do agree to that?
No, that there are individuals who are aligned with that faith, yes, but there are individuals who are aligned with other faiths engaged in very similar activities.
When you say hashtag no DAPL, for those who don't know what that is, what is DAPL?
DAPL refers to the Dakota Access Pipeline.
And you don't want that?
No.
And why not?
Because I don't think that we need to be running pipelines through sacred lands of indigenous people.
How about if it's... Are you joking with me right now?
I'm being 100% serious.
Really? And even though it's providing jobs for
who?
Everybody and their mama.
For who?
A whole lot of folks, for the Indians and anyone else who want to work, it's providing jobs for them. Would you agree to that?
No, I wouldn't agree to that. I think that also is a falsehood. When contractors are going in to do these projects, they are not looking to hire the local communities. And more importantly, the local community has designated that as sacred and sovereign land upon which the United States is continuing to infringe.
When I and other people point out radical Islamic terrorism and that these people are Muslims who are doing that, in your mind, are you hearing them say all Muslim or...
Yes, when you say Muslims carry out radical Islamic terrorism, you're making a generalization.
But you do agree that these people are Muslims?
I don't know about what they are or what they profess to be.
They belong to this so-called religion.
If that's how they individually identify. But again, we're talking about this in a general standpoint, so I think that's a mischaracterization.
What does the Race and Equality Center do?
Well, for a correction, it's the USC Race and Equity Center. It's not the Equality Center. The USC,
okay, I'll read what I have here.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I understand sometimes production's missteps. But the USC Race and Equity Center serves as a nexus of practice, policy, and research dedicated to eradicating the social ill of racism.
And how do you do that?
We do that through a number of different means. Part of that involves assessment and evaluation. So we are currently under the process of constructing the National Assessment of Collegiate Campus Climates. And what that is intended to do is to help colleges and universities make sense of the racial climate within which students are expected to live, work, and learn. And so that not only enables us to understand what their experiences are, but the way that racism as a structural and systemic form of power influences those experiences. So that's one aspect of it. Another piece of that is providing professional education and executive training for senior leaders in higher education who are looking to improve that climate to ensure that students have equal and equitable outcomes for their learning experiences in college.
That's amazing. You said a whole truckload of words.
I did.
That had no meaning.
Not to you.
So let me give you an example.
Not to you.
Right now, there is an attack upon white Americans from black people and some Hispanics, but mostly blacks. They have the knockout games. They're robbing and raping and killing white folks. They are attacking white cops.
Where's the evidence, Jesse? Where's the evidence?
Just out of control.
Where's the evidence?
So are you saying that?
Where's the evidence? That's what I'm saying.
Check the FBI reports. You'll be able to see them. But let me ask, so you're saying that what you're doing at USC, you're showing black people how not to be so evil and hatred toward white folks. You're trying to end that, like
Absolutely
Black Lives
not.
Matter. I'm sure you can agree with me that Black Lives Matter is a far-left, liberal, radical, agitative organization that's built of lesbians and black homosexuals and white social justice warrior. And they are attacking the good folks. So are you trying to help them overcome that?
Overcome what?
That hatred toward whites.
It's not a hatred towards whites. Again, that's a mischaracterization. Black Lives Matter is a political and ideological intervention to oppose the white supremacist structures of this country.
It's a hatred toward America. You would agree to that, right?
No, I think it is an indictment of America, and it's an indictment of America's racial history and racial contemporary context as well. Again, the evidence is clear historically, socially, and politically.
So that's what you're doing, though? You're trying to show these evil blacks how to stop being so nasty?
No, I think you're trying to twist my words and mischaracterize what we do. What we do is to illuminate the way that racism operates, and we define racism based on the structural component of white supremacy on a campus. So we are illuminating the way that white supremacy operates in colleges and universities.
There's no such thing as white supremacy.
There is, Jesse. The evidence is clear.
I want you to check out Colin Flaherty YouTube as well as the Department of Justice, and you would see the attack upon whites from black people.